Alchem Laboratories Q4 FY20 earnings conference call hosted by Motilal Oswal Financial Services Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Tushar Manudhane from Motilal Oswal Financial Services. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thanks, Steve. Welcome to the 4Q FY20 earnings call of Alchem Laboratories. From the management side, we have Mr. Sandeep Singh, Managing Director, Mr. Rajesh Dubey, Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Amit Khare, President, International Business, Mr. Yogesh Kaushal, Senior Vice President, Chronic Division, and Mr. Gagan Borana from Investor Relations. Over to you, Gagan.
Well, thank you, Tushar. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for taking out time and joining us for our Alchem Laboratories Q4 FY20 and full year FY20 earnings call. Earlier during the day, we have released our financial results, and the same are also posted on our website. To discuss the business performance and outlook going forward, we have on this call the senior management team of Alchem. Before I proceed with this call, I would like to remind everybody that the call is being recorded and the call transcript will be made available on our website as well. I would also like to add that today's discussion may include forward-looking statements, and the same must be viewed in conjunction with the risks that our business faces. After the end of this call, if any of your queries remain unanswered, please feel free to get in touch with me. With this, I would like to hand over the call to Mr. Sandeep Singh to present the key highlights of the quarter and the year gone by and the strategy going forward. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Gagan. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking out time and joining us for a quarter 4 and full year FY20 results. I will briefly touch upon some of the key performance highlights of the quarter and the year gone by and would leave the floor open for Q&A. As most of you would be knowing that the lockdown was imposed in the entire country from 22nd March, which led to significant delays in transportation, resulting in lower booking of sales for the month of March and quarter ended March 20. Adjusting for this impact, the India business delivered a healthy double-digit growth even in quarter 4. During the quarter, our international business also registered a robust 23.4% growth led by US business, which grew by 25.8%. The growth in the US business during the quarter in dollar term was also strong at 22.7%. This growth driven by a mix of both new product launches and market share gains in our existing products. For the full year, our India business grew by 11.9% and crossed 5,000 crore of revenue mark. Again, adjusting for the impact of delay in transportation due to lockdown in the month of March, the growth in India business was even higher. This is reflected in our robust secondary sales data by IQVIA, which shows that for the full year, our growth was 16.9% year-on-year compared to the industry growth of 10.8%. In anti-infectives and vitamins, minerals, we grew at 1.5 to 2 times the therapy growth rate. Also in the chronic therapy areas of neuro, diabetes, cardiac, and derma, our growth was much ahead of the market, thereby gaining market share. Talking about the full year performance of our US business, it grew by 16% year-on-year and crossed the important revenue milestone of $300 million during the year. Coming to profitability, I'm happy to share that in the quarter, our EBITDA margin expanded by 220 basis points year-on-year. Similarly, for the full year, our EBITDA margin improved by 250 basis points to reach 17.7. Our ongoing efforts toward cost containment and improvement in efficiency and productivity of our people and also assets have started to show results. Going forward, operating leverage in our US business and India chronic business, better productivity of recently added field force, and higher utilization of our newly added capacities remain the key driver of our EBITDA margin. R&D is an important pillar of our growth. During the year, we invested 473 crores in R&D, which was 5.7% of operating revenue. We filed 18 ANDAs during the year and received 22 approvals, out of which 6 were tentative approvals. With this, we now have a fairly strong product pipeline of 144 ANDAs already filed with US FDA, with over half of them yet to be commercialized. Timely new product approval and the commercialization would be our key focus to drive growth in the US market. Talking about updates on regulatory inspections, I'm happy to share that all our 6 manufacturing facilities in India and US supplying to the US market has received an EIR as on date. All the US FDA inspections so far at these 6 facilities have been successfully closed by the company. We continue to invest in our people and technology to ensure our facilities comply with the regulatory current standards. Before I close, I would like to share our assessment of the current situation and how we are dealing with it. While we have seen muted start to the financial year owing to slowdown in new prescription generation, shutdown of OPDs and deferment of surgeries, we expect activity to pick up in hospitals and clinics as and when the lockdown rules are relaxed in various parts of the country. We are enabling a marketing team with digital tools to engage with the medical fraternity and healthcare providers. We are taking all the necessary steps to ensure safety and hygiene of our employees working with the manufacturing facilities, R&D center, supply chain and other support functions. A senior management team is continuously monitoring the on-ground situation and taking the necessary steps to optimize our production levels, control our receivables and inventory, maintain adequate stock of raw materials, and ensure availability of our products in our key markets. Because of the current situation, while there could be some slowdown in near term, but we back ourselves to navigate through these tough times on back of the strengths that we have built over the years. Those are strong brands, large field force, extensive product portfolio, pan-India distribution to reach, and an experienced management. Thank you for listening. With this, I would like to open the floor for Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Rashmi Sancheti from CGS-CIMB. Please go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity. Just want to know that during Q4, our gross margins have dipped, which I believe is maybe due to the higher API prices during Chinese lockdown. So can you just say that is the entire impact seen in Q4 or it is likely to come in Q1 also?
Actually, this is Rajesh Dubey here. In Q4, impact on our gross margin is to certain extent it is due to API, but major portion it goes to our business mix. So during the quarter, our international sales, it was a composition of our international sales, it was higher, as well as trade generic sales, it was better. That is the reason which contributes maximum. Just little bit component is there of API, but we don't see very significant kind of impact going forward.
Okay. So, sir, as per that, our 9 months was around gross margins were around 61%. So, is it safe to assume that in the subsequent quarter, we will get back to the same kind of gross margin?
Our expectation it remains somewhere close to 60%, and I don't see any reason why we should change our views. We don't have any long-term kind of thing which is bothering us here, so we remain with our estimate of 60%.
Okay. And sir, how many product launches have we done in US business? And if you can tell us, total products commercialized as of date in US. And have you seen any price rises in your base portfolio?
During the quarter, we had 2 launches. During the entire fiscal, we had 14 launches. It has been our best year so far in terms of new launches in the US market, the entire fiscal that is. And the other question was how many products have we commercialized here? We've commercialized probably more than 60 ANDAs or close to 60 ANDAs now, cumulative.
60 products.
60.
Okay. And sir, about price rises in your base portfolio?
Nothing really significant to report there.
Okay, but we have not seen any kind of major erosion in FY20 US base portfolio.
Well, the business is deflationary, as you know. So overall, there will always be deflation year on year.
Okay. And sir, lastly, on CAPEX guidance, how much CAPEX have you spent during the year, and what is the guidance ahead for FY21?
So for 21, we have already given our guidelines. It is going to be 350 crores. And more or less equivalent amount is this year also, 10-15 crores more. I think it was 380 kind of. And next year is going to be somewhere close to 350 crores.
So you're saying FY20 we have spent around 350 crores, right?
FY20 it was 380,
okay.
385 crores. But 21 our estimate is 350 crores.
Okay, and how much is the maintenance out of that?
Major is for replacement or automation, but some component is there of maintenance kind of CapEx. As you know, we have already completed our greenfield project, so nothing much invest in that. Actually, automation and capacity enhancement related CapEx is expected this year.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Prakash Agarwal from Axis Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Good evening to all. So first question on this India business only. So would that be correct to understand that there's a spillover which will flow into Q1 to the extent of 100-150 crores?
Yes, fair statement.
Okay, so and with some unlocking that we're already seeing on the ground, have you seen business pickup that is happening already in the initial June week, or it's too early to comment?
It's mixed actually. It's too early to comment because although the clinics are opening, but the patient flow is still very slow. So we hope that by say last 2 weeks of this month the picture will be more clearer. But as of now the patient flow is slow.
Okay, understand. And since Q2, Q3 are our main quarters in terms of seasonality and monsoons being normal, is there any outlook that we can share, very ballpark, that we have always said we'll do better than industry? Given this is a little unique situation, any ballpark color we can give for the year?
See, I'll tell you that again, very difficult to predict, but what we can say is right now that there are a lot of since we have a very high dependency on antibacterials, anti-infectives, so seasonal part may be little challenged, but all those surgical aspects, because we have a huge business even on a surgical aspect also. So the parenteral antibacterials which we use, right? So 3 months there was a blockade of dental, surgical, and all that ENT. So these you can't stop those treatment. So all those patients who are sitting right now will now start surging. So we expect that maybe July onwards, as you rightly said, that second quarter and third quarter are very important for our business. So we expect a good surge because of this. The patients who are so parenteral will surely show up upward trend.
We'll outperform the industry for sure, to answer you more specifically, but we don't know what the industry will grow. So obviously, our estimates have undergone some change. We will not be growing at high teens and things like that, which we always say that we would. But we also say that we'll outperform by 200 basis points. I think that will continue.
Okay, fair enough. And last question, just trying to understand the dynamics of acute business better. So understand the competition is much higher, and in this kind of environment, the weaker guys will shove off, and the bigger guys who have stronger brands will continue to gain market share. This be actually positive for us in the medium to long term?
Yes, for sure. Yogesh, please. Done. Yogesh.
So see, recently IQVIA has released a very interesting data wherein they have given a slab-wise analysis of brands and companies on those who are high threshold and those who are low. So anything which is above 50 crores and those who are the brand particularly I'm referring to right now, and brand which are 100 crores or 200 crore in size, they actually have gained even during this lockdown time. Okay, and even companies, those amongst top 20 companies, there is a gain of almost 1 to 1.5 basis point. So the what you are saying is absolutely right, that the big brands and the big companies will gain out of this.
Okay, and just one more for Rajesh, sir. So on the employee cost side, would it be correct to understand it's lower because it would be incentive linked, and that's why the employee cost seems lower?
Employee cost is lower because last year there were few one-off, but they were not very substantial. But there were some one-offs in last year's quarter four, and this year quarter four, our sales incentive compared to quarter four of last year, it was more rationalized and evenly distributed in all 4 quarters. That was the reason. So we paid, we debited P&L by lesser amount on incentive front, as well as few last year's quarter four one-off, which were not there in quarter four of current year. That's the reason why quarterly employee cost you see it is on lower side.
Okay, understand. There's a spike on depreciation, sir. Any particular reason?
Yeah, depreciation spike is there because one is AS 116. Because of that, our lease understanding now it is termed as intangible assets. So that one depreciation is there on that front. As well as we have provided accelerated depreciation for few of our assets, which we think it needs to be because of nature of these assets. So both these amounts, I think first one is not one-off, but second one is definitely one-off. So around 18 crores accelerated depreciation which has gone in our P&L, you can consider that as one-off for this quarter.
Okay, so I should remove that 18 crores and look at a 60-65 crore run rate for the upcoming quarters with some inflation.
And obviously that is going to be there because we capitalize also in this quarter few of our facilities. That is another reason. But yes, you said very well, Prakash, you take out 18 crores and then it becomes normal.
Okay, sir. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Neha Manpuria from JP Morgan. Please go ahead.
Thank you for taking my questions. Amit, my first question on the US business. If I were to look at the momentum, is it fair to assume that a large part of the launches, the strong launch momentum that we've seen, is captured in the fourth quarter numbers? Because we've pretty much seen quarter-on-quarter improvement in the US business despite the competition in mycophenolate.
No, so you asked specifically for mycophenolate, but I'll answer more for the first part of your question. So overall number of launches, as I said, were higher current year, and in fact the largest of any period that we've had so far. And when we are not the first generic, or let's say first wave of entrants launching, day 1 or day 181. In that case, when we are launching our product as a follow-on generic, typically it takes anywhere between 2 to 4 quarters to reach our aspirational market shares. So in effect, what happens is that, even if I launch, let's say 5 products in a quarter, you may, or which is let's say on the higher side, you may or may not see the effect of that immediately in that quarter. But say 2 quarters later, that certainly will, you will be able to see a good reflection on growth. And that is exactly what has happened as far as this quarter is concerned. But if you take on an overall annualized basis, that's very much, part of the launches have certainly contributed. and part of the launches will continue contributing.
Is it fair to assume that the number in this quarter is more a reflection of our launch momentum and not so much upstocking that we might have seen in the US?
No, I wouldn't say too much on that. I understood now your question. Not so much of March momentum. The performance overall was more launches during the year for us, which were in Q2 and Q3.
Understood. The second question related is how should we look at the launch momentum going ahead? Because our filing still remains strong. Can we maintain the same number of launches, or were the bunching up of launches that we saw this year?
So we are hoping to, and the first time, if you recall, we had given a guidance that our number of launches will be in double digits, lower double digits that is, and we managed to do that with 14 launches during the year. I think for this year, our overall broad guidance would be around 10 launches in the year.
Okay. Understood. My second question is on the working capital. I understand that probably receivables were high this quarter because of the lockdown impacting collections. What is the trend we've seen in April and May? Has this normalized, or are we still seeing elevated working capital in the India business?
Yeah, April and May, as you know, sales it was impacted. So obviously, working capital front also similar kind of issue. It continued, and yes, we do have inventory as well as we have extended some credit period to our stockists also. If I talk domestic market, yes, so we don't see any major improvement in these 2 months, but going forward, definitely we are working on that, and we think we'll be doing better on working capital.
So, what is the extension? I mean, by how many days have you extended this credit period to? And would this be for trade generic and branded?
No, trade generic, we have not given any extension of credit days, but ethical, yes, of course, we have given 15 days. Stockists, those who are on credit, we have extended by 15 days.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nithya Balasubramaniam from Bernstein Research. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So my question was actually on the India business. So as you're observing patients come back to the clinic, is it true that patients are actually biased towards private clinics and are still staying away from hospitals? And does this mean that your parenteral anti-infectives business will see a much slower recovery than the rest of your business?
Not very sure, but yes, since most of the hospitals are only taking, selected cases, so initially there will be little slow beginning in hospitals compared to the private clinics. But, with surgeries, you can't really delay for beyond a particular time. There's a reason we are little optimistic on parenteral antibiotics. So, they would have delayed the surgeries maybe for 2, 3, 4 months time. But from July, August onwards, you can see a surge in even surgical cases as well, even in hospitals. But currently, the private clinics are more active compared to the hospitals.
Got it. What portion of your business would be parenteral anti-infective?
See, on an antibacterial side, our dependency would be roughly around 30%.
Okay, got it. And if you were to look at all products that are related to surgeries or procedures?
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
You said 30% is parenteral anti-infectives, but if you were to look at all your products that are related to surgery related, pre and post surgery related?
So one is, I stand corrected, this is close to around 40% parenteral.
Okay.
Yeah, anti-infective, yeah, right.
Not parenteral.
Yeah. So overall anti-infectives, that's what you asked the question, that overall anti-infectives which is used in hospitals, okay, including parenteral and oral, will be approximate around 40%.
Yeah, understood. So thank you for that. My next question was actually on the US. So one question I had was your India business is obviously far more profitable than US. And if you were to do some back calculation, of course, and if you look at Indian peers, ROCE also seems to be lower in the US business. So given how well you're doing in India, does it make sense for you to continue investing in the US? Are you not better off allocating resources and capital in India?
Yeah, so great question. See, yes, different businesses will have different return on capital. So I think that is something we have to live with. Even in a domestic business, we have a far different ROCs. In generic, trade generics is different. In acute, it's different. In chronic, it's different. So similarly, international business, if we start weighing from the India lens, then I think all the Indian companies should shut it down, which I think would be wrong, because it's important for growth that companies are into that. On long-term basis, does it yield you a higher return on capital than compared to, let's say, a non-risky asset? Or I think that's the right way to look at it, because theoretically, even if you shut down US business, it doesn't mean I'm going to get that same business in India. So I think it's a good comparison, but maybe it doesn't hold true in practical world.
Oh, fair enough. I think the reason I brought this up was because you right now you have a slightly lower base in the US,
right?
And compared to your peers,
true.
So for a lot of them, they also have legacy issues, incumbency issues, which those hang-ups you don't have.
True.
So which is why I was wondering if we have actually made the conscious choice of trying to push through and scaling up in the US versus investing in equally attractive opportunities.
Yeah, equally attractive as in, sure. So, please understand that we have not acquired anything large in US or for that matter anywhere. So we understand what you say. We will not kind of chase aggressive growth in US just in terms of size. I think if you run international business well, in US in particular, we can still have a return on capital or return on equity of around 15%. Currently, we're not there, but I think over the next 4 to 5 years, we can get there. And that is something which we aim at.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Hello. Steve, are you there? Hello. Hello. We are not able to hear because he's pushed Anubhav.
Can you hear me, sir? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yes, sir. The next question is from the line of Anubhav Agarwal from Credit Suisse. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I just have one question. I just wanted to understand this mycophenolate impact. Is it fully flown in this quarter? And is this, not entirely, but is this one of the key factors for lower gross margin this quarter?
No, I think the growth margin was already answered by CFO, which was more because of the composition of three businesses that we have: ethical, trade, generics, and international. Their contribution in the quarter. So mycophenolate per se certainly will contribute, but that's not the sole reason for gross margin profile that you see.
But have we seen most of the impact flowing through this quarter, or some impact will flow in the future quarters also?
No, most of it is we have seen through as far as mycophenolate is concerned.
Okay. And just on the mix thing within India, what you would have deferred to next quarter, 150 crore, just asking, the chronic component should have been higher for us in the RX segment this quarter, right?
Yeah. Relatively, we are on chronic, we are better off.
So won't that have, so I'm just trying to understand, the bigger contributor was the business mix, but within business, India would not have been so worse off.
So Anubhav, if we adjust the deferred sale, which moved from March to April, okay, if we had booked it in March itself, then the gross margin would have not been on the lower side. It would have been, very much in comparison to what it was last year.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Saket Bansal from Opalend. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, sir. I have a few questions regarding the employee cost. So what percentage of employee cost is variable in nature?
Variable in nature?
Yeah, like incentives and...
I think it won't be significant. Most of the employees, they are on our roll, except some contract employees when it manufacturing.
No, including incentives.
It's more on how much part of the MR cost is fixed and how much is variable. That's the question.
Oh, that's you're assuming that.
You're going at the company level.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So variable.
I was asking whether you really want that answer.
Saket, is my understanding right? You want what part is fixed and what part is variable from incentive perspective? That's right.
Yes, correct.
So around 15% it would be variable.
Okay.
Rest of the cost is fixed.
Okay. So my other question is on the this we have seen this. There are 40 new drugs which are combination drugs which have come into the new pricing regime or something. So the news was yesterday out. So any of our products are into that?
No, we don't have any of our products because it's not in Para 4. We are not impacted by that.
We are not impacted. Okay. And so we can we take a price hike in our base portfolio which we have currently for the next year also?
For which market?
For the India market.
Take decision as we go on because now the price increase is dependent on inflation and plus the regulatory. So as per whatever regulatory permits, we take price increase accordingly.
So what percentage of our portfolio is into NLEM list?
26% of India portfolio.
India portfolio. Okay. How much percentage? I could not hear. Can you tell me?
26%.
36%. Okay. Okay, that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nikhil Mathur from Ambit Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Good evening, everyone. So my question is regarding the MR sales force strength that Alkem envisages to have in FY21. Now, my understanding was that through 9 months FY20, the company was entering a phase that the requirement of new MR additions was going slow. And usually there's a churn that keeps happening. Certain MRs leave the organization and you replace them with new MRs. So if there's a natural churn of MRs in FY21, would you be looking to replace that or now there wouldn't be any additions possibly in FY21 and extending into FY22 as well?
So if your question is related to expansion, then I don't think. But replacement, yes, whichever current strength we have and which is approved, and if there are vacancies, we'll keep on replacing them. But no new expansions.
Okay. And on the chronic side, what's the strategy here? I mean, does the current situation gives you a setback on your need to push your chronic sales, or does the current situation change the things any which way on the chronic side?
See, the impact is across industry. It is not specific to Alkem. Okay. Yes, the only difference is those molecules which were launched in the last Q4 of the year, last year, okay, usually their activities are accelerated in the first and second year. So that acceleration will get impacted for sure.
Okay. And the final question is on, can you give us a sales split of your domestic business into urban areas and semi-urban rural areas? Is it possible to give some color on that?
Right now, you can get this through IQVIA, but internally it's difficult. I mean, we don't track this. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sayan Mukherjee from Nomura. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for taking my question. Sandeep, your statement on going ahead of the market 200-300 basis point is quite encouraging. The general belief is companies which have a large anti-infective and acute therapies will suffer because of hygiene factors going up and stuff like that. And whatever secondary market data we've seen from AIOCD, for instance, indicate that in April the growth has been lower than the broader market. So the question is, what gives you this confidence of beating market, in fiscal 21?
No, I think, inherent strength what we already have. And, please remember that April, May, perhaps you saw the peak of pessimism, lockdown, and everything. So I think to extrapolate from April, May would be incorrect. So once we open up, I think we will be in a much better position. And please, I mean, I said that we'll outperform the market. So the market is down, we'll also be down. But we know that we have historically beaten by 200, 300 basis points, and we will do it. So, we are reaching out on different platforms. We're doing something innovative, like reaching them through digital channels and things like that. So it gives me quite confidence that, yes, we'll beat the market. Obviously, we'll not grow at, mid-teens or things like that, but we still aspire that we will kind of try to go to double digits, close to that.
And, the sales data that you're seeing, would you say the month of May, there's a revival over what you saw in April?
No, I will not say that. Second thing, Sayan, just to complete my answer, whatever numbers you are seeing, you don't see trade generics, which Alkem is a second largest player now in India. So keep that in mind.
That's exactly, I was thinking. So you mentioned like in Q4 also, there was greater contribution. So any color you can give, I understand like there is a huge demand there. So any color you think it will be like, like very, very strong double-digit kind of a contribution or growth that you see?
Yeah. So, Sayan, at this moment, I would just like to say that, trade generics component of domestic business will grow this year because your prescription business is under tremendous pressure and trade generics is growing. So its contribution to domestic business will be higher than what it was last year. That is a very fair statement, and it's growing in a healthy double digits, even in this down market.
Okay, understood. Second question on the US market. I mean, very strong number of launches, and you kind of expect it to continue 10 plus launches you were mentioning. I think the pricing environment also you made a comment is largely okay and stable. So how do you see in terms of growth, fiscal 21, 22 maybe? Do you see an acceleration in growth given that the number of launches or the kind of launches you are getting? Any qualitative? I know it's difficult, but you feel the growth would accelerate or remain at the same pace?
No, our base is increasing, Sayan, as you know. So now, we crossed the 300 million, which we proudly stated. So with that larger base, I think we'll aspire to grow somewhere close to mid-teens. And I think that will be a fair assumption in terms of new launches, the portfolio that we hold. I think that's what we'll aspire for. This year, we may end up low to mid-teens, but I think our overall aim will continue to be mid-teen growth over 2-year period.
Okay, that's helpful. And just finally, in all the pluses and minuses, put together, I earlier interactions suggested there was some pressure in raw material prices. It seems that has also come down. So you have an aspiration of expanding margins by 100 basis, 150 basis every year. Now, of course, this year is an aberration. So how should we think about margin this year or maybe over a 2-year period? Anything that, you would like to guide there?
Yeah. So, Sayan, even for this year, I would say that we still are hopeful that we will be able to expand our EBITDA margin. We will do it for this year as well. And what we said last time, yes, that still continues, that we will expand our EBITDA margin 20% plus in the next 2 to 3 years. But this year, you'll also see growth in EBITDA margin.
Okay, great. Yeah. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ashish Thakkar from Motilal Oswal Securities Limited. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Sir, on the debt part, we have seen some increase in the debt. So if you could help us understand what was it towards?
Yeah. So, Ashish, what exactly you want to know? Yes, increase in debt is there.
Why?
Actually, some time back we discussed, we have funded our working capital to a certain extent, and we have paid good dividend to take advantage of dividend distribution tax. So if you see this year, major portion of our dividend amount, it has gone in interim dividend as well as final dividend of last year. So these are the two things which have increased our debt compared to last year.
Okay. Fair enough. Just one last question on the tax. So we ended this year with 10% tax on the reported basis. If you could help us guide what should we model in for the next 2-3 years, would be helpful.
Next year we are going to remain between 12 to 14%. I think we have already given our views to investor community.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. That was it. All the best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Aditya Khemka from DSP Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, good evening all, and thanks for the opportunity. Sandeep bhai, on the trade generic business, fantastic commentary on growing double digits even in this environment. I think that's very commendable. But the trade generic player who's larger than you in India in his conversations with investors has been talking about a strategy where they are trying to switch the trade generic brands to more OTC, OTX platform, and thereby maybe even improving margins of the trade generic products where already brands are strong, so that, and maybe leverage the distribution of the OTX, OTC platform more than leveraging just the trade generic platform. Any thoughts on that? What do you think about that strategy, and is it at all applicable to what Alkem is also doing?
No, great question, and it is applicable. And compliment them. It's very much possible to do. Just one thing I want to say, Aditya, that though we call it trade generic, sometimes we underestimate the power of those brands. And so, for example, there are some brands in our trade generics that they are brands much larger with a better recall value than in prescription generics. So they already have a brand component, which sometimes we don't appreciate. It is very much possible, Aditya, to take it to OTX kind of route. Don't forget, my only point is they are already kind of an OTX, some of them, if it's a good brand.
Yeah.
I think certainly that's possible, Aditya. But just to be completely clear, it's not, we do advertise some of our brands a little bit, but we don't have an aggressive plan as of now. But it's a very interesting thought, and we do delve on it sometimes. And yes, that could be work in progress. A lot of things we could do. For example, I'm extending the question, maybe the answer. For example, whenever there's a risk of margin, putting cap margins on trade generics.
Yeah.
On that front, also you can restructure your business. These are great brands. You could always stick it on the ethical prescription route as well. So some restructuring and smart move over there can grow the business much more than historically what it has grown.
That's a very interesting thought. You can probably take a trade generic because it's already an established brand to take it to the RX front also, and maybe the doctors would be amenable to those brands.
Yes.
But Sandeep bhai, can you talk about the pros and cons? You seem to be sounding a little comprehensible to this policy or to this strategy, whereas your larger competitor is sounding very bullish and very aggressive on this strategy. So I don't want you to comment on his strategy, but on your thoughts on the strategy, what are the pros and cons?
In what, sir? In what, Aditya?
In taking these trade generics to a more OTC or a more RX platform.
Okay.
Why would you not go aggressive on doing that, and why would you go slowly and think about it?
First thing is, why mend something which is not broken? We're already doing well, it's growing well. So that's first part. Second, OTC is a different skill game. Very honestly, we are hardcore prescription business, a pharma business. We have not done that in the past. Of course, we could go ahead and learn it, get talent, but that would have a learning curve. I don't foresee any reason to do it as of now, but we still evaluate it. So that's one con. You will end up spending a lot. And, you could realize it much later that it's working or not working, unlike what we are doing right now.
Right. And this is to draw from your OTC business experience in some of the consumer products that you have tried around.
Yes.
Yes. No, I get that. I completely get that. Okay. Just one more question on the...
I think that's a great point, and we are open to it. It's not that we are closed-minded. We are just cautious about doing it, but it's a good idea, honestly.
Fantastic. Okay. Just one more question on the overall margin profile of the business, and more to Mr. Dubey sir's point on financing working capital. So Dubey sir, do you guys also do factoring and with recourse, without recourse for your receivables to manage or to leverage your working capital?
No. So far we have not done.
Right.
We don't think actually with our normal working capital requirement, we are very comfortable. This is not permanent kind of amount involved in working capital is there. And we think we'll come back to our normalcy very quickly.
Okay. There was one more follow-up on that. So you mentioned a 350 crore capex plan. Where are we increasing capacity? In which plants? And where do those plants cater to as a market?
No, we are having capex requirement all across to all our manufacturing. But Indore is our new facility, so we have recently higher capex there. But more or less, we have everywhere.
Understood. One question for the US business as well. So you said that in the US business you are anticipating 10 odd launches. How many filings do you foresee filing for the US market? Number one. Number two, which are the areas that you are targeting? So now we are standing in an era where oral solids are a foregone conclusion. Some of the oral solid products do make sense, yes, but majority of them do not make much money. And then the complex products have a very high R&D barrier. Could you talk a little bit about how are you strategizing on your US business?
Sure. So the number of filings remain the same ambition that we have always carried forward consistently over the last 5 years. That number is 12 to 15 that we have stated. So that continues to remain the same. I know last 3 years we have overshot, but then that also is some legacy carry forward from GDUFA regimen, pre-GDUFA, initial GDUFA regimen. So 12 to 15 remains our answer. To the second part of your question, even today, the US business and overall business, 80% continues to be, oral products, oral solids also to that extent. Going forward, obviously, our investments consciously, like we've said, are going across, not just dosage forms and therapy areas, but, into complex generics also, follow-on generics also. Some of the old products also because of, lower competition depict, far better return on investment. And we consciously do a mix of everything. You can't have 12 filings in a year where you'll get, let's say, approved in 15 months' time, but then you're waiting for another 2 to 3 years for launch because, these are all ahead of time. So, everything needs to be looked at from a mixed perspective, and we are working on all the possible areas that we can, that where we have capabilities and which we can afford at the same time.
Thank you, Amit. Just one last, follow-up on this. So in his comments, Sandeep Bhai mentioned that, 15% ROE is a, number that one can do in the US business. Is that the same standard you hold yourself to when you budget the R&D expenditure on these projects?
So, see, R&D expenditure, we were actually talking. The R&D expenditure for this year, does it result in revenues for this year or margin for this year? Obviously, the answer is no. The gestations are at least 3 to 4 years. So if we really see dollar invested today, can it return me 15% when it is actually invested through working capital, capex, and all of that?
Correct.
I think the answer is yes. That is the minimum that we should aspire for.
Perfect. Thank you, and all the best, guys.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nimish Mehta from Research Delta Advisors. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I just had one question. For the year FY20, where we reported 12% growth on our domestic business, can you just break it up into the growth from price increase and the growth from volume increase? And also, if you can compare the same with the industry. And what do you think it is the trajectory likely to be going forward?
Yeah, so I think if you break up the India growth, so it would be about 3% would be new product introduction, about 4% would be price increase, and the remaining would be volume growth.
I see. And I mean, if I'm not wrong, I think the industry comparisons are much higher in terms of price increase. Is that right?
I think yes. Yeah, so we are around the same. So industry would be around 4. So we are also around 3.5, 4. Okay. So yeah, that's where we are.
Okay. And you think this, and particularly on the price increase, you think this is likely to continue for next few years as well? I mean, for both the industry as well as for our company?
Yeah, 3 to 4% price increase is doable, every year. That's the average. If you see over the last 4 years, 3 to 4% has been the average over the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, that I understand. I'm just talking with this perspective that, there will be, there is a demand dip in the next, let's say this quarter, maybe in the next second quarter as well, and whereby people would try to push their products. Many of the competitors might want to push their products by lower pricing, and hence there might be a price dip, which is the worry that I'm, coming from. And once it dips, whether we'll be able to increase the price at an industry level, I'm asking. So that's the real.
Yes, so from business perspective, Nimesh, I'll answer that, it really doesn't work because, when you have a power of prescription, then price is not significant. So 3 to 4% price increase, irrespective of environment, will not be a challenge. Yes, it do work in generics, but in ethical business, as and when regulatory permits, we can take a price increase. Will not deter the business flow.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of Sangeeta Purushottam from Cogito Advisors. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I had two questions. One is that given the nature of your business and the dependence on acute, would it be right to assume that, a lot of the sales in the domestic business which have not happened as a result of the lockdown are in a sense lost to us, or that, they will not come back in the months after the lockdown opens? That's one question. My second question relates to guidance on the tax rate. How do we see the tax rate for the next couple of years? And if I may add, I had one more follow-up question on something an earlier participant had asked. You mentioned that your R&D expenditure is about 5.3% of sales and is 473 crores. How much of that is for the domestic business and how much is it for the US filings?
There are three questions. The business which we are lost in first 2 months, I would say is difficult because, those are prescriptions of 7 to 10 days. And once the time is over, you can't really recover them. So
right.
That small business which we are lost is difficult to recover in balance 8 to 10 months time.
Right.
I'll ask my CFO to answer.
Yeah, I think I've already given hint for our tax rate. I think I've given for next year. And beyond 2 years, I think difficult to predict up to certain level. But we are going to remain within 15% for next 2 years. Next year, we think we'll be somewhere between 12 to 14%.
12 to 14%. Okay. All right. And on the R&D, if you could just answer that.
Rate of international domestic.
See, R&D spending, generally, and in our case, it is for our international operation, but some component of domestic is there. So I think somewhere around 6-7%, or up to 10% kind of expenditure. It is for domestic and the rest is for international.
Right. So if we allocate the R&D costs to the international operations, then are we making money at the EBITDA level on the international operations?
Yes, we are making money after taking out R&D costs.
Post R&D, low single digit EBITDA margin.
Low single digits. Okay. Right.
Yeah, I'm Sangeeta's partner. Just one question I had. In a normal year, not in a post-COVID year, what is the Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 distribution of revenue, and what is the underlying reason for the seasonality in your sales?
So see, usually our first half we are at around 54% of business, and second half we do 46%. But since we have acute to chronic split, so this is acute and chronic it is other way around. We do around 50 to 52% and then 48% in the next half. So there are different skews. Yeah, so the skews are aligned with the season. So so our antibacterial season is largely in the second half and the third half. So that gives us traction. So the phasing is done, the basis of season. So second half is more critical.
Monsoon and waterborne disease and things like that impact.
Yeah. So I was just trying to understand your last year results. Your Q4 results, if you do a year-on-year comparison, they are very good. But if you compare it with the previous quarter, they don't look so good. So is that, what's the underlying reason for that?
So that's what has been explained, correct?
Always the case.
40% of our India business is anti-infective, which is seasonal in nature. So monsoon and pre-monsoon are the peak time for the anti-infective business. So once monsoon goes by October, then you see a decline, or sequential decline in those sales. So that's the reason you'll see Q4 being the weakest and Q2, Q3, and Q1 being the better ones.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anupam Agarwal from Lucky Investment. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi sir. Good evening. My question was just adding to the previous participant on US. So at what level of sales did we break even in the US?
We had already crossed the break-even point. I think that's the question which was asked. Do we generate positive EBITDA? And the answer was given.
Right. But is it possible for you to give me a figure at what level did we break even?
What level did we break even? Okay.
Yeah.
Probably $100 million ago, maybe at 200 level.
Okay. And sir, so incrementally, let's suppose every dollar would be what percentage of margin?
I don't think I can answer that question.
Okay, sir. Sir, and one more. We have always been talking about cost optimization and efficiency. So how much of percentage have we already achieved, and how much is left to be achieved?
So it's a continuous exercise going on. Cost optimization, it has to go on, and that's what we are doing. And we do have ongoing program also.
Right.
So it has to happen all across.
Okay. And sir, is it possible to give me your concentration in the US in terms of top 5 or top 10 products?
I think there's public information, sir. You can get it. I mean, we don't share, but you'll get from Equia and all that.
Okay, sir. No problem, sir. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anil Karmakar from Dalal & Broacha. Please go ahead.
Hi. Thank you for taking my question. Most of my questions have been answered. Just one question, some clarification. In US, you said that your aspirational returns are 15%. I just wanted to confirm whether it's an ROE or ROCE.
That was ROCE.
ROCE, okay. And how large can your US business become, say, 5-6 years down the line?
Well, mid-teen, if we aspire, you can calculate based on, CAGR of mid-teen.
Around 15% CAGR.
15% growth is what we aspire year on year. If you take that,
right. Fair enough. Okay, thank you very much and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. We take the next question from the line of Kunal Mehta from Vallum Capital. Please go ahead.
So thank you for the opportunity. I have a single question. So you mentioned in response to a previous participant's question that you expect the margin to improve even this year, also at the company level. So just wanting to understand the reasoning behind this statement. So because in an environment like this, where you're able to leverage your costs and obtain operating leverage out of the fixed costs, especially your MR costs, would be constrained. So can you give us a sense of how do you wish to go about this?
Yeah, how I wish to go about it is because there is variable cost also in business, and it's so medical rep cost, which you mentioned, is just one expense. You have promo expense, you have incentives, travel is completely down, and we're not responsible for it. So, there's a lot of costs. We are confident we can grow the EBITDA margin even in these circumstances. Your expense just basically takes a big hit. It's not that because we are geniuses. I think most people will do that, honestly.
Sure, I get your point, but because your productivity of the MRs, especially when you're not able to visit the clinics or when the doctor does not want MRs to visit clinics, especially the doctor would be hesitant to contract with corona. So that reduces the productivity, the profit per person which you can generate for you. So would you still say that the cost reductions which you would put forth in place this year would be able to offset that reduction, that decline in productivity?
Yes, what I said, if you recall, I said EBITDA margin would increase, right? So that's possible, sir. I restate what I said. It's possible, sir. 100%.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, due to time constraint, that was the last question. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Tushar Manudhane for closing comments.
Thanks a lot for this call. I thank the management as well for spending the time on providing the outlook for the different business segments. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Motilal Oswal Financial Services, that concludes this conference. Thank you all for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.